on the book of face. Yeah, I know where to go. There's a man over there into the music scene, showing lots of love for the community. With great advice, I know who I should go see. So around town radio show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday. It is Tuesday. It is. And welcome to the program today. We are here live at 5. Hi, Glenn, checking in on the YouTube channel. What's going on? All right, we're going to cut the theme song out because we've got a lot to talk about today. I've got a special guest. Thank goodness somebody stepped up to the plate today and became my co-hostess with the mostest. Hi, Ray Renee. How are you?
Hi, Scott. Good. How are you?
How you doing today?
Oh, I'm all right. Just getting ready for a karaoke gig.
Well, that's fun. Thanks for filling in for the lovely Karis today, who is on my, can I say shit list? Maybe I can. I don't know. She's on the list today because she's on the Monsters of Rock cruise and did not invite her other host. And I am saddened deeply by that. Should I be sad?
Yeah, I'd be a little.
It really looks fun. I hope they're having a gregreat time.
Like fun.
She went with a great group of people too. So that's cool. How are you today, Ray?
I'm here.
Are you? You had a busy day?
Well, it's a busy day because at 6 o'clock I gotta make sure I'm gone and at Voodoo Brew Pub. The good thing is it's literally like a few steps away from my apartment. So
well, there you go. We'll get you out of here on time today. We're gonna have some fun with this topic though, and it totally derailed my other topic today because when the Book of Face and Instagram went down today for a period of a couple hours. Some people experienced outages, some people didn't, but it made me think, how damn dependent are we on this social media platform now and all these social platforms to promote our businesses and our bands and our venues? Everybody lives and dies by this thing. And what if it went away for a month? What would you do? Or what if it went away forever? I think that's a great question to ask everybody. And we want your opinion on it. Ray, give me your opinion to start with on some of this, because you drive a lot of things on social media. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the people I consider to be well-versed in this. So give me your opinion.
I try to be. Well, what would happen basically if Facebook and not so much Instagram. I don't use Instagram as much. I don't like it as much. I feel like it's not my target audience. It's a bunch of younger kids on Instagram. They are not really into what I'm doing so much. But for Facebook, for me, if Facebook goes down, I can't really work. I can't do anything. That's pretty much the
that's your work, right? I mean, that's what you do for other places and businesses and venues. I mean, you're doing their social media, so mm-hmm. that's a killer to you. Yeah. I mean, it would destroy. And I had this happen to me, just the live video portion and video portion last week or week before last, and I kept thinking, well, if I don't get that back, it's over. I mean, mm-hmm. I'm not going to do anything. I mean, I could put it out on YouTube, but I can tell you right now, I don't have the followers on YouTube that we have on here. And Glenn will argue with me that we picked up a lot last week, and we did, but still comparable to like 8,500 that we have following us here and 300 maybe on YouTube if we're up to that now. It's a whole different world. And you weigh that odds, I think, is it worth it or is it not? And today just proved again, people were freaking out. I mean, I saw musicians throwing stuff out that they had been hacked. They had been, their ex-girlfriend had their password and crap like that. And it freaks people out when they can't get on the socials, especially the Book of Face. I think it's just so popular with people, whether you want to admit it or not, people. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like Faith, but it's the connection to your family, your friends. And of course you, Ray, it's a connection to your business. Mm-hmm. Hi, Skip. Thanks for being here. Roger. Hi, Ashley. So what, I specifically wrote a word in my teaser for this today. Could it cripple the music business locally if it went away? What do you think about that? I use that word as a one of those big, like they use in the news to make it sound bigger than it was. But, could it virtually bring the music business to its knees till people figure out how to go back to putting posters on the street poles? I mean, I don't know.
Well, even if it went down completely, going back to posters on street poles just really isn't a viable option, just because the internet exists. And because, even if Facebook, even if Meta went down, there are other platforms that are going to exist. There are other platforms that might take its place. You have to find a way to get these ads up online. If we didn't have social media entirely, like if it was just gone, if there were no social media platforms, then yeah, we would be forced to, putting the flyers back up on telephone poles and stuff like that again, stomping the yard. And one thing that does to us as musicians is it hurts us. It takes away a lot of the time, the extra time that Facebook posting allows us to do to book more gigs and to fill up our calendars. I mean, now we have to be getting in our cars. We have to drive places. We have to make sure those posters go to the proper places that, people are actually going to see them. And how do you even know, how do you know where those posters are going to go? What your targeted demographic is going to be? I mean, restaurants, but you can't put a flyer for somebody else's business up at someone else's restaurant. You know what I mean?
We have become, and Ashley said it best here. She says, too dependent. We're too dependent on the social media platforms today, and the cost factor. You think of that. If you've got to go out and print posters for your event, and there is a cost factor in that, to make an event on Meta or the Book of Face or whatever we want to call it today, doesn't cost you a damn thing. Mm-hmm. And it goes to, thousands of people versus going to that one person walking down the street that has time. Because if you're in a car, you're not reading the poster. You might read a billboard, but you're not going to, unless you're stopped at a light, read that. And Ray, I lost you. I don't know where you went, but you just went black on me there. Ooh, there you go. You're back. Bad. You're back. But yeah, yes, I can hear you fine. And there are some older musicians on here today. I'll use that term affectionately because I'm from the school where when we advertised, I worked in several clubs that I was the DJ in, and we had a hotline that all the kids knew they could call the club and ring in. And when they would ring in on this phone number, they would hear a recorded lineup of what we had that week. And that's how they got their information about our club, because there was no internet and we didn't have a marquee. I mean, it wasn't like you were driving down the road with a marquee. Can't hear me?
Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you at all.
I can hear you just fine.
I don't know what's going on here.
Yes, I hear you just fine, Ray. You're good. So get out and get back in if you can hear me. Maybe, or if you can't, then I don't know what we're going to do. She's going to get out and get back in, it looks like. Let's hope. And we'll check here. I'll check the mute on her. And there we go. I'm hearing you fine, Ray, if you can hear me. So let me ask some of you out there today. I'm seeing comments rolling in, and Dell is here. He says, remember hand delivering and mailing flyers. Dell, I'm with you, man. I mean, I'm from that era as well. And there's Glenn promoting bands in town. Glenn, get off that kick, buddy. I love you, but get off that kick because ain't nobody doing it. There are so little bands on that is absolutely worthless to me. You may love it. I appreciate that, and I'm not knocking you for it. But I will tell you, bands in town, until somebody steps up and says, all you bands got to be on that to be relevant, it's not going to happen. Hi, Casey Gomez. Hi, Carrie. And again, that's internet-based. What if the internet went away? Well, we'd be in a lot worse trouble than we are now, than worrying about music. But yeah, we're so dependent on the interwebs and all that stuff. As Ashley said, they're too dependent on it. It's crazy to think about this. And yeah, we're starting to see some fluttering here. Ray's trying to get back in. And hopefully she'll join us. What's up, Mickey? Thanks for being here. Party Town in the house. And Rob Baisley, thank you. Now I'm going to start coughing here. That's great. And yeah, Adele, I agree there on that, handing out stuff. And MySpace could come back. Yeah, that was it, Jim. It was before Facebook. But if you're a product of the 80s, you know that everything was either flyer driven or the venue had a hotline. Like I said, you could call and find out who was playing there, or you don't want to know how many takes I did on a tape recorder that went on the phone, an answering machine, to come up with a 60-second commercial for all the acts we had that week and that kind of thing. I mean, I can still recite several of the places that I work and their address and all that stuff. Let's see if I've got Ray back now. Have you?
I fixed it.
All right. We got it. Good. Ray, I was just talking about clubs having hotlines back in the day. You could phone in, and we had one at several clubs I worked at, and they people would dial in, and it would be a 60-second little, tape in the answering machine that you recorded that says, here's what we got going this week, and here's who plays here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That was the method that was technology driven back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And now it's all driven by social media. And every venue I know that is of any relevance puts something out on social media every day. And this thing today just hit me in the face with, okay, it was down for a couple hours. I started thinking, well, am I going to do the show at 5? Will it be up? Will it not? And, immediately before I started trying to log back in, I went to the internet itself, and I saw, they're having an outage and everybody's experiencing it across the country. So it's not just somebody's hacked my page again or one of those things, But what would we do? What would you do? Because you're of the young set. I classify you that, Ray, as the young people who have grown up with this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And what would you do without it? How would you advertise your band?
Well, I am not 100% sure on that because like you said, I've been doing this only with social media. That's been going since long before I started performing in bands. I agree with Nicole. Some people
street teaming. Amen, Nicole. I love it. Mm-hmm. But those days are over. The phone tree, the call your friends, tell them, hey, that one party band's playing down the street tonight. We all got to go. That's the kind of stuff that happened back in the old days. And today it seems like, and I'm going to say it probably pissed some people off, but people don't want to get off their butts. They want to sit at a computer or a phone and they want to peruse everything that's going on. And you can see it in the youth of today. I mean, the young people who have grown up on this, they die without their phone. They literally, I've seen parents take the phones away from teenagers at a dinner out in a restaurant, and you would have thought they cut the kid's throat. I mean,
that's
the kids,
one thing, kids, because I always had something to do. I guess I grew up, I was a teenager with a phone, but we didn't have smartphones until I was in college. So, I had to have conversations with people at the table the same way that that everybody who was a kid in the 80s and 70s had to as well. I personally didn't have any issues with that, but now anymore, within the past 5-6 years or so, I'd have to say, phones have become a necessity for work. For kids, they'll probably get mad that their phone's taken away because they can't talk to their friends or whatever. But as far as somebody like myself goes, if I don't have my phone, I can't do any of my jobs. My phone is the way I clock in at my day job. So if we don't have that, we just can't. We'd have to come up with an entirely different everything. There's a lot of different industries that have gone to using phones for specific things. When I do my Singo, you have to have a phone or an iPad for it. It doesn't work on a desktop computer or a laptop. I have to use I have an old iPhone that I got before I had to buy this one. And the only reason I had to buy this new one, I don't like buying new things unless my old ones are broken, but I needed to upgrade for my job. It didn't have enough capacity as much capacity as I needed it for. So there's actually a lot of people will say, oh my God, people are going to die without it, but literally I will. I can't work without it.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, and gosh, I watched an episode of Dr. Phil a month or so ago where the mom took the daughter's phone away because she was sending nudes to somebody or something, and she killed her mom. I mean, it's like, don't take my phone away thing. It gets crazy how dependent we are on these little devices, these computers in our pocket. And when it comes to the music business, I use the term cripple, like I said today, to tease some people into making comments, obviously. They did. And they all said, I don't think it's going to cripple us, but it would definitely set us back some, all that. Josh, you find value here. I've got your comment up in printing flyers and posters. How do you and where do you distribute those? Drop that in the comments because I want to know from you what you're doing with those. One thing I do admire, the beer distributors now and the folks the beverage distributors all have put printing shops in their businesses, their warehouses, and they print posters that go into the bars that are the monthly lineup for music with their logo on it and all that. It's genius work because it is a good advertiser when you're in the men's room standing there doing your business and you look at the wall in front of you and there's a list and a lineup of who's playing. You start to remember things like that and who's playing there for the week. But this whole advertising thing, we have gotten so dependent, Ray, on social media to do our advertising. And Nicole said it earlier, we're getting it for free. Mm-hmm. And boy, we bitch a lot about it. We do. We bitch about the way they treat us when it goes down. I mean, everybody was off with Mark Zuckerberg's head today. It's like sometimes it goes down. Oh, Ray, your Wi-Fi is killing me today. If you can hear me still, you dropped out again on me. Hi, Jason. I got to say hi to some people. Oh, you're back, Ray.
Good way that time. Cool.
There we are.
Sorry.
Hi, Tom Stevenson. Jim, thank you. Melody, thanks for being here. Remembering the days you sent mass emails. Yeah, and even, before emails, it was like we said, the flyers. Everybody had a MailChimp when email came out, and they had these email lists that they would collect in the bars and put in there, and they'd send out a blast to all the people. And nowadays, look at my phone and I'd be embarrassed for you to see how many emails I've got unread in my phone, that I just can't get to every day and I leave hanging there. And that's just, to me, just bad on my part. But Ray, if the internet went down permanently, or let me not say the internet, let's say all the social platforms got taken away, and they have in some countries, they've taken them away. What would you do to even try to get a business going?
I think what I would have to do as far as the my shows and my gigs go, I would probably have to actually go in and take the same flyers that I'm creating for my shows that I just post online. I would have to go and print them out, basically, which costs a decent amount of money if you're going to use the proper paper, because there's cardstock paper you have to use. You can't just use regular paper. They're going to get torn up. And that is costly, but I would have to print out. I would have to go by venue. If I have multiple gigs at that venue, I'll have to make an entire flyer that says where I'm going to, or that I'm going to be there, and all the dates that I'm going to be there for the year, which I've done before, even with social media for particular bars that do book us through the year. And then you have to go and put that flyer up and hope that all the people that come into the bar see that. But the thing is, that's not a good way of getting people who don't go to that bar to come to the bar. That's really only something that you can do to get people who already go to the bar. There's really not anything that you can do. I mean, maybe put flyers on your car and drive around in the windows. I don't know.
I'm going to put the Blues Brothers speakers on top of my car and drive around and announce the concert in the neighborhood over a PA system. I mean, that's creative there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Mickey says pigeons. Thank you, Mickey, for that. We'll get the homing pigeons warmed up.
I also think that social media in itself has, and the fact that, the population is just in general a lot larger than it was. And all the millennials are now of the age where they are adults or older. And there's a lot of Generation Z people who are now old enough to, start jobs and start their own businesses and things. And every new generation just happens to have more people in it than the generation that came before. So along with the fact that you would have to find a way to advertise for your businesses, you also have to take into consideration the fact that there is exponentially way more people who do this thing that we do than there were before the social media posting all started happening. Like, that's just, there's so many people that are in the business, and how do you choose. You know, social media kind of makes it easy for us to see where everybody's playing and kind of make that decision. But there's just so many that not having social media would be, I think it would just make it very difficult.
And Jim, you are spot on with your comment there. I'm going to tell you that back in the 80s, I literally subscribed to the local newspaper for one page that was in there on Thursdays, and it was the Who's Playing Out section in the newspaper, where they had these little boxes and they said tonight at the bitter end is such and such a band and all that, and what nights they were there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Back those days, a lot of bands played house gigs, so you played 5 nights a week in the same venue. So you could take a peek at this one pager that they had in the newspaper and pretty much decide where you were going to go. It has changed so much. And, you know, City Beat, like that Jim is saying, in Cincinnati, their Dayton Daily News had the same thing. It was called Who's Going Out, I think, and those kind of things. Hi, Josh. Thanks for being here. And I just was slammed in the face by this today, thinking, if that went away for the entire month, Facebook went away, what would it do to our music venues, who they advertise every single day? And the musicians, like you said, you put a lot of work into it. Some do, some don't. But you put a lot of work into this, and it just hit me like we need to have this discussion. So if anybody has any ideas out there, I'd love to hear it. And Josh has answered me when I asked him earlier what he was saying to us. He said I should do it more often, but to have flyer up in the bar. Okay. And you know, I'm going to go back to my product of the 80s, Ray. You're going to laugh at me for this, but in the 80s, I made a visit to the Sunset Strip in California, and I walked down that area, and there were areas that were nothing but big wooden boards put up to put your band flyer on. And there were thousands of band flyers of people playing and where they were playing and when they were playing. I mean, it's if you watch the movies, the documentaries about Motley Crue and any of those, that's how they advertised. They went out and street teamed it, like Nicole said, and they put up flyers everywhere and they handed them to people, and they lied to people and said, you know, you get in, I'll buy your first drink, and then they disappear and go play on the stage and all those things to get people in the bars. But as Josh says, it doesn't replace the socials. Socials are free. Mm-hmm. I mean, so to speak. I mean, they're free. They come with a price, believe me. They do at times, but they're free. So we would have to go to paying, and how many bands would be able to afford that? You know, mm-hmm. It's a big expense.
Is that, I mean, Jim brought up City Beat, but I have gone to City Beat, and there's a way that you can go on their website. Once again, we're on the internet here. There's a way that you can go on their website and you can submit one of your gigs. However, it's up to them whether they're going to accept it or not. And if you don't submit it with money, they're not going to put it in their paper, because that's how they run. That it's just, it is what it is. So
I didn't get a blue check mark on Facebook for free either. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? It to try to protect yourself from some things, it costs money. Mm-hmm. It does. I hate to say it, but you know, pay a little bit a month for that. Hopeful some security, it helps. Mm-hmm. I don't, you know, Ray, we could beat this to death, but we're really, I would like everybody watching today, and make comments, guys. We want to hear from you, but make comments about it and do a self-check and say, how dependent is my music business, my venue, myself on social media? And I think if you do a self-check, you'd say, like I did a week or so ago when they took away my rights to video, kill me. I mean, I'd be done with what I do in my business. Now, could I post things? Yes, I could still post. But like Karis, she lost her whole page due to someone cloning her and getting in and posting inappropriate things. And if it gets more inappropriate than what Karis posts, it was really bad. And they took the page away. She had to build the whole damn thing. That is a lot of work. She had 10,000 followers.
It's a lot of work. And if the page is monetized, then that actually, I know people who make a living off of Facebook now by posting on Facebook. It is a thing. Right. People do it. I know somebody who makes $2,000 a month doing it. And if he loses his access to Facebook, then he loses his income. He's going to have to go find another job right now. And I know a lot of people will think, oh, well, he has to go find another job. But, you know, what if, you know, your company went down and didn't have what you were doing anymore? I'm sure you'd complain about it too. If, you know, if we weren't using I don't know, if we weren't using gas anymore for some reason, then I'm sure a lot of people who work in that industry would complain about it because they're not going to have a job, and it'd be very, very hard for them to find something else to do.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you look at Amazon, the amount of people that make money off Amazon sales and doing their thing there. And if Amazon decided tomorrow, and they're a company that's got plenty of money, decided to cut those people out, the third parties that sell on Amazon, that would take a lot of people out of the mix. It'd be back to eBay and some of that stuff that went on with people for years. And we're so damn dependent on this stuff, and we are at the mercy of those who control it. And I can tell you from my experience last week or two, it's very hard to talk to a human. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. It's all AI generated now and all that. And that's only going to get worse as they cut 500 employees every month and go to computerized, you had to fill out a dispute report, and then it goes to the computer and it goes into some queue, and there's no priority for that. It's just when the computer gets to it. And I can imagine they have millions of those a year, to try to protect your page or whatever. Roger, thank you for that. He says, youngest daughter works for Stag Narrows. Yeah. Strange. Stag Narrows Distributing, and print up the Bell and the Bears monthly music flyers. Yeah. And I think that's genius by the beer companies and the beverage vendors. I think when they started doing that, it really helped. And it doesn't hurt to have their logo on every poster that's up in a venue. That's to me, very smart business.
I've noticed that the venues that do stuff like that, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe it's free. I don't think you have to pay anything extra. I believe someone has told me before that it's actually free. You just have to ask them to do it. I could be wrong. But the venues that actually do have their lineups somewhere on a wall get way busier for the bands than those who do not. So it's about the venues too. And I feel like some venues could do a little bit better on helping out the advertising for their entertainment.
Yeah, Party Town says be a walking flyer, feet on the ground. I mean, there's a reason that we have our support local music T-shirts. I mean, I'll tell you that. I mean, it's not only that's our slogan, but it's also good for business when people are taking pictures on the Monsters of Rock cruise and sending them to me in those shirts. That makes me happy, and it makes you know that people appreciate what you're doing. But will it fill a venue? That's the question. If you give 1,000 band shirts away, and is that going to make a bunch of people, when they see somebody wearing it, say, "Ooh, who's that? I want to go see him." I don't know. That's a tough nut to crack sometimes. Mm-hmm. And Diana's talking about photos. Yeah. And if there wasn't any social media, where would we see Diana's or Ed Sawicki's photos and all those things that get posted that make you envious of not being at that event that you missed,
I would honestly probably create a local magazine, just because of the person that I am. If that happened, if there were no social medias anymore, I would probably be like, I'll just make a magazine and put everybody's shows in it. But that's just I've tried to do something like that before, and then I realized that it just wasn't going to work because of social media.
And Nicole, I'm sure you could survive it because you are one of those absolute unique individuals who has just such a creative mind. And I think that's what it would take to try to figure out a way around, a go around to some of this if it went away. And I'm trying to get to all your comments, guys. We got a ton of them. Randy says, I still get it like the old days, meet my friends and spread my mouth over drink. Yeah. I mean, that's what it would be. And we all ought to think about that a little bit. And we all put our eggs in one basket right now. And how can we broaden those horizons a little bit? Because Ray hit it on the head. I mean, Ray, you said, we're not just talking about social media here, but what if something happened to the internet? How are you going to get your information about a lot of things? And that's scary, as dependent as we are on it today. And all it takes is, knocking out a few of those locations and their servers and all those things. And then what happens to us,
Well, I think the biggest reason that we are so dependent on it is because of the fact that it is free. If you think about it, all of the other platforms that you could advertise on, I mean, there's still radio. You can advertise on radio, but it's going to cost you a decent amount of money. There's still the newspapers. I don't personally know anybody who actually still reads the newspapers, because most of the people that I know get their information online, because you can access all that information online. But you probably have to go back to music or to the papers if we didn't have that. There's also like City Beat isn't a newspaper per se. It's a local section, but once again, that costs money. Everything else aside from social media, really bare minimum costs at least a little bit of money. And if you talk to any musician, I've talked to a lot of musicians. I haven't been doing this for, as long as most of the musicians that I know, but the majority of the musicians that I know that have been performing since like the early 80s will tell you that the prices that the bars are willing to pay us haven't gone up any since the 80s. So it's not like we have any extra money that we can use for that advertising.
Right. And as a venue, I can tell you back when I had my venues and was owner of a few venues, I spent a ton in radio advertising back in those days. And many times I might as well have driven down the interstate and thrown $100 bills out the window for the return on that investment, because it just didn't always get it. And you had to pick the right radio station. You had to pick the right, and those sales guys knocked on your door every single day. And Eddie, I'm laughing my ass off at your comment there. Telephone, telegraph, tell Mary Ann. Thank you. There's no truer words right there. Mary Ann will promote you. She will, or she'll get you by the jugular, one of the two. Jason says flyers around town, papers. Yeah. And boards around campus. Yeah, I mean, there used to be flyer boards in all kinds of college towns and places like that. And that's what it was out in LA area, the Sunset Strip and all that. That's how you advertise. And you'd see people standing at those boards looking at the flyers, maybe for a half hour. They'd stop and read all the flyers because everybody tried to outcreate somebody. And Nicole, that's where you would come in great. Your artistic ability would be fantastic with a flyer business at that point. And you go to Nashville, they still have Hatch Show Prints, who've been in business, forever. And you go down there and they still print posters for shows and that and put them up around town. I mean, it's a standard thing. And Jim, what are you saying, Jim? Saddest part about the B&B Facebook page is it still being used? Yeah. And you can't get that taken away. That's the bad part. And that again is the computer thing. And I'm just, it's when somebody comes in and takes over your profile, there's not a whole lot you can do about it, is there, Ray?
No, that's why I freaked out this morning. Because it's like, a lot of people say, oh, people are freaking out because they can't get on social media. Well, no, I was freaking out because that's how I make money.
Well, I was freaking out a little too, thinking, oh my God, somebody's finally got to me to where they took over my page, and I can't access it now.
I sent a text message to several people, including Karis, like asking people if they could get on their pages, because that was just my way of figuring it out if it was just me. And then I found out pretty quickly that it wasn't just a me problem. So
Del McFarland, I love you, man. Del's getting his poster on the wall right now here on the show, and it's up there. So if the internet goes down this week, he'll be at the Naughty Pine with Twisted Fate on March 8th. If you want to see them, I got a chance to see a sneak peek of them at the Bell one night. They were fantastic. So check that out. And Kara says very few people I know listen to the radio, and those who do listen to XM, and it's not local. And that's the sad part. And if you ask anybody that's in iHeart and the big conglomerates that have taken over radio, Cumulus, iHeart, all that, they live and die by the corporate suits at the end of their radio wave. I mean, they don't care about the local thing. They care about numbers and advertising dollars, and it's not what it used to be in radio. I'll say that.
You know that City Beat was sold to a company in, I want to say, Cleveland in I think the sale was complete in 2021. So they're not even in Cincinnati anymore. They have people in Cincinnati that write for them, but City Beat isn't a Cincinnati entity. It's in Cleveland.
Isn't that amazing? And locally here, we have the same type of thing up in the Dayton area that it was funny. They ran their best of, and they had the best podcast. We got nominated 2 years straight. We ended up second place both year. But the one that won both years was the podcast by the person who owned that platform.
Oh yeah, funny.
Which is funny how that worked. And not that we're bitter. I mean, I was glad to make it to number 2 because there was some really good stuff on there, but it still just makes you think, it's all, I don't want to say it's all rigged, but it's all how much you pay and what you do. And just like the check mark on Facebook, I don't know what it's going to get me. I still never talked to a real human. I don't think. I did get fast service, I did get some response, which helped, but they'll take your money. They will. Corona says when he moved to Cincy, he said use the city beat, picked it up every Friday to see the venues with the bands. Yeah. And
now
you still got to see them.
They're putting city beats anymore. I used to see them in a lot of different bars, and I want to say I saw them in Kroger, but I haven't found a place where you can get a stack of city beats for a while.
There's Sugar Rock. Let's see what they have to say. On top of posters, flyers, we also have our schedule of upcoming shows printed on handouts at all the shows. Very good. Yeah. And that's good marketing there, so people will know. And again, we're so dependent on these social media platforms. And I'm with you on the Instagram side, Ray. Instagram does not do a whole lot for me. And, and TikTok the same way. I know you're a TikToker, you do some of that, but
I used to.
For me, it doesn't. But if we look at the history of some of these, like Twitter that became X, I don't hear nearly the people talking about tweeting or being on there and posting to X or any of that like they used to. So, it ebbs and tides. And so far, the Book of Face has stood the test of time because I think there's so many people there who connect with their families, and the platform is built around being able to socially see the people you want to see.
Well, and Facebook has actually been very, very good. Well, Meta in general has been very, very good at figuring out what other social media platforms are doing that is working and is pulling the younger crowds into them. And they are they're kind of taking a page out of TikTok's book, which is why they surpassed TikTok again, and why I haven't been on TikTok. I've just been using Facebook because I get better results.
And Nicole, yes, absolutely support the local radio and TV stations. Unfortunately, many of the local radio stations, unlike the one you're with, Nicole, which is a public entity radio station, are owned by these big, massive companies, and they're starting to wean their way away. I mean, I was sitting in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico and heard a friend of mine on the radio down there in Florida, because he's now syndicated in 100 markets doing the noon show, and he never mentions where he is. So they can have one DJ do 100 shows for what they used to pay 100 people to do, and it's corporatized. I mean, it is. That's how it works, and it's unfortunate. Paul, what do you got to say here? We got to get out of here in a minute, Ray, but he says it would take a lot to bring down the internet entirely. Yeah. And let's hope so. I watched a movie, Julia Roberts, I think, was in it not too long ago, about the internet going down and all the chaos that occurred and everything else. And I mean, when you go to the store and you can't swipe a card because it's internet driven and you don't have any cash in your pocket, you're not getting the product. The store's not getting the money. I mean, it's scary. It is how dependent we are on electronics and things like that today. And I'm that old guy, get off my lawn, kids, but I have learned a whole lot about social media since I've been doing this, where I really didn't want to. As a fire chief, in my other life, I was trying to discourage my employees from being on social media too much because they were being watched by everybody politically and that kind of thing. So it's two-edged sword, and people laugh at me now from the fire department and say, oh, you used to be anti-social media. Well, it's what pays the bills now.
I'm sure that there's a lot of people who have been anti a whole lot of things in the past that had to move over to using them. I mean, it kind of is what it is. People in older generations who aren't used to using something because they didn't grow up with it just don't necessarily see as many uses for it, but people who grow up with the technology sometimes see a few more uses. And sometimes I think like even Gen Z, they come up with more uses for social media and other things on the internet that I wouldn't have thought of before. It's kind of crazy how every generation kind of finds different uses for things that other generations were previously using.
Well, Ray, you've found a way to work it. And Chad, thank you for saying you watched that movie. It's scary, isn't it? A little bit. And Zach Taylor, thanks for that shameless plug in there. Ray, you've mastered some social media work and all that. It's always good to have you on the show and get your input here. And hopefully everybody has listened today, takes a little self-check and looks at how dependent you are on it, especially if you're a band, and say, how can we better advertise ourselves in the event we don't have that access? And even if your page gets taken over by somebody and you have to start over, it's a thing you need to think about, because
please make sure that everybody out there, please make sure you have somebody who is able to get you back into your page, because you can do that in your settings. Just so you know, make sure that there is somebody else. I can't tell you like go here, 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 and here, but if you go in your settings, you can actually find somebody, you can have somebody else who has a Facebook page get you back into your page if something does happen. There is a way.
And I found a really good YouTube tutorial on that the other day. Actually, I went and watched it in its entirety, and I can't think of who it was that did it, but it was very good. And it told you how to do that so that you do have some of those layers of protection. It's almost like having the legacy contact should you pass away, that somebody can manage your page, which is so important if you want it to go on and be there, because otherwise you're going to get probably eliminated or taken over by somebody. And you don't want that at all. So that's all we got for today, guys. Ray, I can't thank you enough for stepping into those size 12 shoes of Karis today and being part of this. And hopefully she's going to fall off the cruise ship tonight. No, I'm just kidding. She's enjoying the fun in the sun with a bunch of our rock stars from Cincinnati down there at Monsters of Rock. I can't wait to get the full details on that one back on the show. And we have a fun show tomorrow, Ray, at noon. I have a band called 9404 going to join us on Wednesday with the band. So tune in tomorrow at noon, if you will. And we'll be here on Thursday with Who's Playing Out, brought to you by our friends at Froggies in Monroe. Anything else you got for today, Ray, before we say bye-bye to everybody?
No, not really. Thank you so much for having me, Scott. I always enjoy.
Well, always good to have you with us. Stay with me for a minute, Ray. We'll get out of here, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'm off to Mr. Burroughs Tavern, do a little trivia tonight, where Ray's been doing a fantastic bang-up job with music bingo. You've been doing karaoke there as well. Lots of fun stuff. All right. We'll see you soon, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Oh, we forgot that part. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our sponsors.
Working for the weekend, then I want to see a show.
Show.
I flip on the book of face.